What's up, family? This is your brother Speech. Good morning. Is it morning? Let me see. Yes, it's still morning. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry has continued to amaze me and his accomplishments. I just found out that his new studio that he just opened up here in Atlanta, first black owned, from what I've heard, the first black owned studio, major Hollywood studio in the world, also, or at least in the US, and also um, as big as like Warner Brothers studios in LA, all of these major mainstay fundamental studios in LA, that his is as big as three of those studios combined. So a black owned studio, plus huge, plus major in its technological advancements and all of that stuff. I've always felt like Tyler Perry was a great prototype for us as black people to look at when it comes to building an empire or building great businesses from nothing. And he's gotten a lot of disses over the years from especially black intellectuals and various people in the black world. And he gets, according to what he said to Gayle King in the interview, he gets utterly ignored by those that are other races in Hollywood, even though he's like huge, he's extremely successful and huge. He gets utterly ignored. And anyway, the thing that I wanted to say about him is that, in my opinion, he's the most revolutionary um, example of a black filmmaker. And that's saying a lot because there's been some incredible black filmmakers and they've done incredible work. I mean, my favorite possibly is Spike Lee. And and even though he's my favorite, I don't think that he ended up being the most revolutionary of all of the filmmakers that I could think of. Tyler Perry ended up being that for me. And while a lot of people sort of diss him for the content, I wanted to address that for a second. Tyler Perry has done a lot of different content. Like, you talk about a prolific writer, that dude is a prolific writer. Like, from what I hear, at least, he writes, produces, directs, does a lot of the sound scoring for a lot of his, for most, all of his, from what I hear, all of his TV shows, most of his movies, so on and so forth. Like, this dude is just a writing fool, like he goes at it. But a lot of people diss him for his content and act like he just puts out ratchet, degrading, coonery type of movies. And I disagree with that. And I think the truth is he's put out a lot of different types of content. So some of it I think is absolute coonery. A lot of it, though, I think is actually very meaningful. And even the stuff that's not deeply meaningful and just comical, it has some type of moral to the story to it. And what I've always, like, I think about the Diary of the Mad Black Woman, right? That film was revolutionary to me in the sense that it came out of nowhere. Here's a total black film out in the theaters in the cut, because I live out in the country. And I'll never forget that movie being a poster, seeing that poster in the middle of the country. I live in Fayetteville, and I saw that poster at my local movie theater. And I'm like, Diary of a Mad Black Woman? I had never heard of Tyler Perry. I'd never been to none of his plays. And we went to go see that movie. And look, was it the best writing? Was it the best acting? No, it wasn't, but it was us. It was us. And it was a movie about it was dramatic and all of that, but it was still a movie, almost in a soap opera sense about us. And I appreciated the fact that he didn't wait for some big partnership in order to make that movie happen. He built, and then what I learned after I watched the movie was that he had built this following from the plays that he did, which I thought was revolutionary and self-determined. And coming up from what I hear, that he was homeless at one point in his life, to doing plays that failed, but then kept on pushing at it, and then ultimately accomplished some success at his plays, and then continued to add more plays to that. So he's a great example of just block by block adding on to your success. Will Smith's manager sat me down in New York years ago, and he said, Speech, you got to start with a spark and then make that spark into a flame and make that flame into a fire, a forest fire. So that was the that was the advice that I think Tyler Perry lived out. He made building blocks and made those things into big buildings and big structures and big success. And I appreciated that. So like Diary of a Mad Black Woman was to me brilliant, and it was a great prototype for us as a people. And so people diss him for the Madea stuff. I think some of the Madea stuff is pure, garbage. I went to see one Madea movie and it was garbage. But I will say I've seen others where it has the sort of what I consider the nigga factory aspects to it, but it also has other characters that counteract that aspect. So I feel like it has a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, I felt like each one of those movies had some type of moral to the story that I thought was important and good. So I'll get back to the Madea joints because that's a bone that a lot of people have to pick with Tyler Perry. Well, actually, I'll stick on it for a second. The Madea joints as well, it has the whole man dressed as a woman thing. See, this is my thing. First of all, I'm not a basher of gay or transgender or cross-dressing or any type of human being in the ways they want to live their life. I'm not going to bash that. So showing a man in a dress can be funny, and he does a great job at doing that. When he plays Madea, generally it is extremely funny to see a big old dude dressed in a dress and high heels or whatever, rolling across the hood of a car or beating up somebody in a jail. It's funny. I mean, that's obvious. It obviously is funny to a lot of people, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when you know that it's Hollywood and it's a movie. It's a storyline that is meant to entertain. It is not somebody necessarily telling everybody go live this way or do this or do that. It's a movie meant to entertain. And I feel like nobody has that issue when Eddie Murphy, plays a really heavy set dude, or when he plays a lot of different people. Nobody says, well, that's fake, and why is he pushing obesity on people? He's not. He's playing a character. You know what I'm saying? So Professor Clump is just a character in a comedy. So I feel like him playing a woman in a movie is not any deep statement about, everybody should go live a gay lifestyle, or everybody should start cross-dressing or whatever. It's like, are you kidding me? It's not about that. It's just a film that's meant to be entertainment. So that's what I see with the Madea piece. But he's done other movies like Good Deeds, which was a great moral to the story about helping a woman and falling in love with a woman that didn't have financial means that other people had. And she was struggling through life and she found a good black man. I mean, that's a great movie. Movies like Daddy's Little Girl about fatherhood and single parent raising, a single mother raising a child. I mean, these things were movies about deeper subjects that many of us in our community are dealing with. And it's good to deal with the subject. Temptation was a great one. To me, that was a very good spiritual movie. It had a lot of decadence, which it needed to have according to the storyline. But at the end of the day, it was a movie about the problems that temptation can lead us into if we fall for it. Acrimony, I thought was great. I think that's the name of it. But anyway, so he's had a lot of Why Did I Get Married? Those films were great. I mean, those films had great comedic relief, but it also had great moral to the story, and it talked about the importance of marriage and the problems that can happen in a marriage and obstacles that have to be overcome in a marriage and hiding the problems that are in your marriage, all types of stuff. So I thought that these things were good, and I think a lot of people don't give him the credit for the diversity of content that he's put out and he puts out there. Another thing that I've seen with him is that, there's a lot of hatred in the black community towards spiritually based movies. I mean, a lot of us are Muslim or fake African and fake this and fake that. Some of us are really doing it. And I applaud you for whatever you're doing authentically. But a lot of us just hate Christianity because of the perceptions that it has. And a lot of it's bad and true perceptions about what you've seen of Christianity, which actually doesn't line up with the Bible. But that's a whole nother talk. So therefore, they sort of have a right off the bat, sort of a hatred towards anything that has sort of a Christian twist to it. So Tyler Perry's films tend to have that somewhere in there. It might talk about the Bible in some way. It might be, loosely spiritually based on scripture. And a lot of people, especially up north, sort of frown upon that. Now, I just want to talk about up north. One of the reasons I champion Tyler Perry, I said I love Spike Lee. He's probably one of my favorite black directors. But Spike dissed him at one point. I'm glad they're no longer beefing. And Spike even came to the opening of this studio, from what I could see. And I've worked with Spike. I'm a big fan. I've always been a huge fan. And so I have nothing but respect for him. It doesn't mean I can't say a little critique about anybody that I want to, but I still love him. So anyway, he was dogging out Tyler for a little while and just saying it's coonery and blah, blah, blah. And, I felt, even Cornel West, he had said some stuff about Tyler Perry's movies compared to a lot of other black directors. And I'm paraphrasing, but his basic thing was like, you know, it ain't quality movies that he puts out. And a lot of people just had a lot of stuff to say. And it almost got to a point where me, as a fan of Tyler Perry overall, I had to sort of watch my mouth if I'm around certain circles, because people would misconstrue. They would think I'm ignorant if I liked Tyler Perry. And they would just look at me like, this dude ain't conscious as I thought he was. He don't know nothing about, consciousness if he likes Tyler Perry. And I'm like, nah, what I actually saw was a lot of elitism, New York elitism. And I've seen this my entire life, and especially as I've been a professional. So over 30 years now, I've seen this. And this is not a diss to New York. I love New York. I owe New York everything. But my only critique about New York would be there is this sense of, their poop don't smell as bad as everybody else's poop. And, I said poop. Anyway, that, basically they have some type of smarter way of living life and thinking about life than the rest of the world. And I 100% disagree with that. I think New Yorkers have a lot to offer, and so does the rest of the world and the rest of the nation. Just as much to offer, and the wisdom is not kept in New York. I mean, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, none of that stuff is kept in New York. It's everywhere. And I've even faced it in my own career, where being known as a Southern hip hop artist, and Arrested Development starting here in in Atlanta, Georgia, there was always this, and there still is actually, people looking down on what we've contributed and what we do, and even my consciousness and everything, just looking down upon it in comparison to New York cats. And so I think New York has sort of like consistently dissed his contribution to us as a people. But I'll say there's a huge difference in what he did, and I respect it, as opposed to what New York movers and shakers tend to do. So let me just give you the paradigm in the prototype. New Yorkers tend to make big moves without question. You got a Jay-Z, you got, so many others, 50s from New York originally, and on and on and on. But a lot of these cats, and not just them, many, many others that are behind the scenes in the music industry that make big deals, they tend to make big deals not by creating content for black people per se, but by really finding the lowest common denominator subject matter, whether rap, music, or film, or TV, and put it out there and partner up with already huge, generally white companies. So they'll partner up with these white companies, generally putting out literally the lowest common denominator content about black people that you can find. And they make big bucks and they make big dollars. So whether it's in the rap game, a lot of these moguls in the rap game will find the most ratchet, ruthless, thug-oriented rap artists and pitch them to labels who obviously want to make money and surely don't mind making money off of our degradation. And they will make partnerships. The label feels it's a good look because, okay, we're working with black people, and black people are the ones that gave us this, so you can't tell us that we're trying to mess with y'all's image. This is black people that pitched us this. And they make these big deals. I've seen it a million times in this industry. And on the other hand, Tyler Perry, his movies and his content wasn't that way. So a lot of the partnerships that he made was, number one, with us as a people, doing direct sales with us as a people, doing plays initially throughout the nation, getting black people to come to these plays. Once he realized he had a big enough audience to do that, he moved up to movies. Black people went to go see Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And then same difference with all of his movies primarily. Of course, Madea crossed over because of numerous reasons, nigga factory reasons, and just other reasons. But, the truth is he also made deals with like Oprah Winfrey and with OWN. And I don't know if she owned OWN at the time they first initially got together. I believe at least she sold OWN, the majority of the stock of OWN to Discovery, I think it was, or one of those other big white companies. But long story short is that he made great partnerships with a lot of black entertainers and black people. He obviously hired tons of black people, but his content was generally about the working class, the common person, whereas a lot of the New York stuff was coming out, was glorifying materialism, glorifying thugs and drug dealers and gunners and hustlers and pimps and things of this nature, and really sort of stepping on or peeing on the common black person, saying you ain't good enough, you ain't nothing. I'm great because I got because I got all these chains and I got all these clothes, I got the right watch, I got the right car, so on and so forth. That was sort of the New York prototype of what team partnerships were being created content wise. And Tyler Perry was on a whole nother tip. It was generally about the common person and the common black person at that. And I felt like that was admirable. It also was imitatable. The thing I haven't liked about a lot of the big moves, and I got in trouble, not in my heart, but I got in trouble by posting Instagram piece a while ago about this whole black excellence. And I say it in quotes because a lot of the black excellence that we tend to celebrate tends to come from either they were drug dealers at one time, they still associate with that whole world of drug dealing and gang banging, and they get rich really by any means. I mean, some of their businesses started from the drug money and then carried on and got other people from that world to start rapping and got rich with themes about degrading our women, about selling drugs to one another, killing one another. These were the primary themes. And so, that type of stuff has really become the prototype for how to get rich in Hollywood or in black business in the entertainment field. So I think that Tyler Perry, again, didn't go that route. His was more generally about Christian themes. Definitely some coonery. I'm not going to say there was no coonery involved. But to me, the diversity was so much that you couldn't just say it was all coonery. And even if you were to say some stuff was coonery, I'm cool with that. It was similar to what I said about the Amber Geiger case. I'm fine with saying that some of his stuff is coonery, but if you're going to say some of his stuff was coonery, then you also got to say a lot of stuff that Ice Cube did was coonery, or a lot of stuff that even Spike Lee did was coonery. At the end of the day, dogging out various people in our own community and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think you have to go across the board and say what's coonery if you're going to go that route and talk about coons and what's sellout material and so on and so forth. Spike Lee less than many others, but there's been a bunch of black movies and a ton of black TV shows directed and created and brought to the networks by black people and they're out even now. There's a lot of these reality shows that have been literally all about the degradation of our people. Like 90% of it is about the degradation of our people in some way or form or fashion. And so there's a lot of blame to go around if we're going to talk about what is coonery out there and what content is coonery out there. So anyway, I'm really proud of this brother. Came from poverty to riches without selling drugs, without, without being a gangster and shooting up people and killing people, without going to prison, didn't get shot a number of times, and all of these types of storylines that tend to be the things that we see as success in the entertainment field for black people. So I'm really proud of this brother. And I hope y'all will just take a reevaluation of Tyler Perry for those that are hating on him and look at what he's done. And I've heard some of the stories from insiders actually saying that he doesn't pay well and he rips people off with pay. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if that's true or false. I know that I've had rumors said about me to that regard, and they were literally as false as the day is long. So I don't know whether to believe those things or not. I'm not sure, but I do know that the proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, he's hiring a ton of black and brown people. He's creating a ton of black and brown content. And to me, he's been a very inspirational guy to try to learn what he's doing and do our own content, either through his company initially, or even if you're going to imitate his building block technique of, one block at a time, or starting from a spark and creating a flame. So anyway, I just wanted to say a little something about him. I respected his hustle a great deal. I hope that, I think Africa's doing the same thing. I've seen Hispanic countries do the same type of prototype, which is some of their movies might seem a little cheesy. The writing's not perfect at first. The film work is not perfect at first, but it's still getting done. And therefore, the stories are still being said. Can they improve? Yes. I've seen improvement in Tyler's stories, and his director of photography work, and everything. I've seen improvement as he's went along, and that's how it should happen. But he didn't wait for someone to sort of put him under their arm, someone white, I should say, to put him under their arm. And those that are white that have partnered with him, amen. But I think he's been very self-determined compared to a lot of our other directors and writers. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Peace and strength, y'all. Love you.